Welcome back to Midnight Affair Tales. Thank you for joining us. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your stories inspire us. Now let's dive into today's captivating tale. Michael stared at his phone, frustration mounting as the unanswered call turned into another voicemail. For the third time this week, Laura hadn't picked up, claiming she was tied up in late-night meetings at the marketing firm where she worked. Something about her tone seemed off lately, lighter when she left the house, almost detached when she returned. At first, Michael brushed it off as work stress, but now his gut gnawed at him, whispering suspicions he didn't want to entertain. That night, as Laura walked in past midnight, her hair tousled and her smile too forced, Michael tried to suppress his growing doubts. "Tough day?" he asked, his voice betraying none of the unease he felt. She nodded, muttering something about a big campaign launch before retreating to the shower. As the water ran, Michael's gaze fell on her handbag left carelessly on the kitchen counter. A pang of guilt struck him for even considering it, but the urge to look inside was overwhelming. Shaking his head, Michael forced himself to sit on the couch. He wouldn't be that guy, he thought. But later, as he lay in bed next to Laura's sleeping form, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message flashed on the screen for just a second, but the name was one he didn't recognize: Jason. It was followed by 3 words that seared into Michael's mind: "Missing you already?" Heart pounding, he carefully turned to face the ceiling, questions flooding his thoughts. Who was Jason? And why was he texting Laura so late? The answers to these questions would soon upend his life in ways he never imagined. But tonight, he could only lie there, wide-eyed, as suspicion started to take root. The next morning, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As Laura rushed to get ready for work, humming a tune he didn't recognize, his mind replayed the name on her phone screen: Jason. It gnawed at him like a splinter beneath his skin. Laura was his wife of 8 years, the woman who stood by his side through thick and thin. Yet now she felt like a stranger. "Who's Jason?" he asked casually as she slipped on her heels. His voice was light, but his eyes were sharp, scanning for any reaction. Laura froze for a fraction of a second before turning to him with a practiced smile. "Jason? Oh, just a new client we're working with." "Why?" Michael nodded, forcing a grin. "No reason. Just curious." But inside, alarm bells rang. Her reaction had been too smooth, too rehearsed. He knew Laura well enough to sense when she wasn't telling the truth. As she left the house, Michael decided he couldn't ignore his gut any longer. Logging into their shared phone account, he pulled up her call history. His stomach twisted as he saw the frequency of calls to and from the same number. Jason. The calls were late at night, sometimes even in the middle of the workday. He scrolled further and found messages, dozens of them, but their content was hidden behind a privacy lock. Michael's hands trembled as he stared at the evidence. He wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation, but deep down, he knew the truth was far more sinister. This wasn't just paranoia. Something was going on and he had to find out what. With determination stealing his resolve, Michael decided it was time to dig deeper. The day dragged on for Michael as he sat in his office, staring blankly at spreadsheets. The revelation from Laura's call history consumed him, making it impossible to focus. Every time he thought about the name Jason, his chest tightened. Was it a harmless misunderstanding, or was his marriage crumbling beneath him? His mind spiraled through possibilities until the sharp ping of an email broke his trance. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." Michael frowned, unsure whether it was spam or something legitimate. He hesitated for a moment before clicking it. The email contained no text, just an attachment labeled evidence.zip. A rush of adrenaline surged through him as he hovered over the file. Who would send him something like this? Was it related to Laura? Against his better judgment, he downloaded and opened it. Inside were photos, grainy but unmistakable. The first image showed Laura sitting at a dimly lit restaurant, leaning across the table toward a man. His face wasn't entirely clear, but Michael could tell it wasn't a work meeting. Another photo showed her entering a hotel lobby with the same man, their hands brushing against each other's. A lump formed in Michael's throat as he scrolled through the rest. Timestamps, locations, and even receipts for dinners and hotel stays, all logged meticulously. The email had no signature, but it was clear someone knew about Laura's affair and wanted Michael to know too. He leaned back in his chair, the weight of betrayal pressing down on him. Whoever sent this was right, he deserved to know the truth. But why had this stranger gone out of their way to deliver it? And what did they expect him to do next? Michael couldn't stop pacing his office. The photos and evidence from the anonymous email were undeniable, and yet his mind struggled to process the betrayal. He replayed the moments in his head, Laura's late-night meetings, her cheerful lies, the name Jason, and the pieces began falling into place. But one question gnawed at him. Who sent the email? Was it someone looking out for him, or did they have an ulterior motive? His thoughts were interrupted by a knock on his office door. He looked up to see a striking woman with piercing eyes standing in the doorway. She exuded confidence but carried an air of urgency. "Michael?" she asked, her voice low and steady. "I'm Rachel." Michael frowned. He didn't recognize her name or face. "Do I know you?" he asked cautiously, his mind immediately wondering if she was connected to the email. "No," she said, stepping inside and shutting the door behind her. "But I think we have a problem in common." She placed a folder on his desk and slid it toward him. "Your wife, Laura, and my husband, Jason." Michael's heart sank. He stared at the folder, his hands frozen. "You sent the email?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Rachel nodded. "I had to. Jason's been lying to me for months and Laura's been a part of it. I thought you deserved to know the truth just like I did." Michael opened the folder, revealing more photos and evidence. Rachel wasn't here to waste time, she'd been digging for weeks. "Why come to me?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion and disbelief. "Because," Rachel said firmly, "if we want justice, we're going to need each other. They think they're untouchable. It's time we prove them wrong." Michael leaned back in his chair, staring at Rachel as her words settled over him. "Justice?" he repeated, his voice edged with disbelief. He couldn't decide if this was a dream or a nightmare. Rachel, however, sat across from him, her composure unwavering. She opened another envelope from her bag and handed it to him. Inside were detailed records. More dates, more places, and worst of all, a timeline that confirmed Laura and Jason had been carrying on for months. "They think we're oblivious," Rachel said, folding her arms. "But they're sloppy. Look at these. Hotel bookings under fake names. Dinner reservations for two, always in secluded corners. They're bold, Michael, and they think we're blind." Michael's hands trembled as he flipped through the documents. Anger mixed with humiliation surged through him. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his tone bitter. "What difference does it make now? My marriage is already a joke." Rachel's eyes darkened. "Because we're not just going to sit here and let them get away with it. We're going to confront them, but on our terms, not theirs. This isn't just about catching them. It's about making them face the consequences of their choices." Michael rubbed his temples, his mind racing. "How do you even suggest we do that? Show up at a hotel and embarrass them?" Rachel smirked. "Not yet. They need to feel comfortable first. Let them think we're still in the dark. Meanwhile, we'll gather more evidence. Real evidence that will leave them no room to deny it. And when the moment is right, we'll strike." Michael hesitated but nodded slowly. "Fine," he said, his voice resolute. "If we're doing this, we do it right. No loose ends." The days that followed were agonizing for Michael. He played the role of an oblivious husband while every smile and laugh from Laura felt like a dagger to his chest. Rachel had been clear. They needed to keep their suspicions hidden until the evidence was airtight. But pretending nothing was wrong took more strength than Michael thought he had. Laura's behavior became increasingly brazen. Late nights turned into overnight stays, and her excuses grew flimsier. "We're just swamped at work," she said one evening as she packed an overnight bag. The team decided to work through the night at the office to meet deadlines. Michael forced a smile. "You're incredible for working so hard," he replied, his voice steady despite the fury boiling underneath. He watched her leave, the click of her heels echoing through the hallway. As soon as the door closed, Michael grabbed his phone and texted Rachel, "She's out." "What's next?" Rachel replied instantly, "Meet me in 30. We're following her." They met in a dimly lit parking lot a few blocks from Michael's house. Rachel, dressed in dark clothing, handed Michael a small recording device. "We stick to the plan. No confrontations tonight," she said, her tone firm. "We follow them, gather proof, and leave." Michael nodded, his hands gripping the steering wheel as they tailed Laura's car. His heart pounded as she pulled into a hotel parking lot, where Jason's car was already parked. Michael clenched his fists as he watched Laura step out, her carefree demeanor a stark contrast to the guilt she should have been feeling. Through the hotel lobby's glass doors, they saw Laura embrace Jason. Rachel snapped photos from her phone, her movements precise and practiced. "Let's go," she whispered. "We've got what we need for now." Michael's jaw tightened. This was only the beginning. The next morning, Michael and Rachel sat in a quiet diner, poring over the evidence they had collected the night before. Rachel had laid out a series of photos on the table, each one more incriminating than the last. In one, Laura and Jason could be seen laughing in the hotel lobby, their body language unmistakably intimate. In another, they exited an elevator hand in hand. "They're not even trying to hide it," Michael muttered, bitterness lacing his words. He clenched his fists, struggling to keep his emotions in check. Rachel leaned forward. "That's why they'll never see us coming. They're so confident in their lies that they're sloppy." She tapped a photo with her finger. "This hotel isn't random. Jason booked rooms here 3 times last month, always under the same alias. We need to track their habits?" Michael raised an eyebrow. "How do you know all this?" Rachel smirked faintly. "Let's just say I've had experience uncovering lies. Jason's a creature of habit and so is Laura. All we have to do is keep watching and they'll reveal their entire playbook." Michael sighed. "And then what? What's the end game?" Rachel's gaze hardened. "We don't just confront them. We make sure their entire world knows who they really are." Michael returned home that evening with a plan forming in his mind. Rachel had been right, they couldn't rush this. They needed something undeniable, something even Laura and Jason couldn't talk their way out of. The opportunity presented itself when Laura left her phone charging on the kitchen counter while she showered. Michael acted quickly, slipping a small recording device into her purse. He hated himself for the invasion of privacy, but he reminded himself of what was at stake. Days passed as he waited, nerves eating away at him. Finally, the recorder yielded results. Laura had used her phone to have a whispered conversation with Jason about their next rendezvous. The details were chillingly casual, as if betraying their spouses had become second nature to them. Michael played the recording for Rachel that evening. She listened in silence, her expression unreadable. When the audio ended, she looked at him with steely determination. "This changes everything," she said. "They've just handed us their next move on a silver platter." Michael nodded. "It's time we use it." The following week, Rachel and Michael orchestrated their plan. Jason had mentioned meeting Laura at an upscale restaurant downtown, a place neither of them would normally frequent. Rachel insisted they use this opportunity to not only gather more evidence but to set the stage for a dramatic confrontation. Rachel arranged for a private investigator to film the rendezvous from a discreet corner of the restaurant. "We need their voices, their actions, everything," she told Michael. "If we're going to confront them, it has to be bulletproof." Michael's stomach churned as he parked near the restaurant that evening. He and Rachel watched from a distance as Laura and Jason arrived separately, only to greet each other with a kiss once inside. The private investigator recorded every moment, capturing the raw proof they needed. As the night progressed, Michael's emotions oscillated between rage and heartbreak. He wanted to burst into the restaurant and scream at them, but Rachel's firm grip on his arm kept him grounded. "Not yet," she whispered. "The time has to be perfect." When the couple left the restaurant, laughing as they strolled to Jason's car, Michael's heart hardened. He turned to Rachel. "We've got everything we need," he said. "Let's end this." Rachel smiled grimly. "Not yet. The bigger the stage, the harder they'll fall." Rachel and Michael sat in her living room, the evidence sprawled across the coffee table like pieces of a dark puzzle. Photos, recordings, and video clips formed an airtight case against their unfaithful spouses. But Rachel wasn't satisfied yet. "They've embarrassed us in private," she said coldly. "We're going to expose them in public." Michael frowned. "Public? What do you have in mind?" Rachel leaned back, her lips curling into a calculating smile. "Jason and Laura don't just cheat, they flaunt their affair thinking no one will call them out. So let's make them the center of attention. There's a charity gala next week. Jason's company sponsors it, and Laura always tags along with him as a +1. Michael's stomach churned. The thought of Laura parading around in public with Jason sickened him, but Rachel's plan intrigued him. "And you think we can turn the gala into, what? A stage for their downfall?" Rachel nodded. "Exactly. With the evidence we have, We'll make sure they can't deny a thing. We'll make it a night they'll never forget." Michael hesitated. "And what about us? Are we ready for the fallout?" Rachel's eyes burned with determination. "We've already lost too much, Michael. It's time they faced the consequences." The week leading up to the gala was a whirlwind of preparation. Rachel and Michael worked tirelessly to ensure every detail of their plan was flawless. They collaborated with a private investigator to compile the evidence into a cohesive narrative, photos, videos, and recordings that painted a damning picture of Laura and Jason's betrayal. Rachel also reached out to trusted contacts in Jason's company, subtly hinting at the scandal brewing beneath the surface. "The key is to plant seeds," she explained to Michael. "People will start talking before we even reveal the truth." Michael, meanwhile, wrestled with his emotions. He still loved Laura despite her betrayal, and the thought of exposing her publicly weighed heavily on him. "What if we're going too far?" he asked Rachel one night. Rachel's expression softened for a moment, but her resolve remained firm. "They didn't care about us when they chose to cheat," she said. "Why should we care about sparing them?" By the end of the week, everything was in place. The evidence was ready, the gala attendees were primed, and the stage was set for a confrontation that would leave no room for doubt. The night of the gala arrived, and Michael felt a mix of anxiety and grim determination as he dressed in his best suit. He and Rachel met near the venue, their expressions tense but resolute. "Are you ready for this?" Rachel asked, her voice low. Michael nodded. "Ready as I'll ever be." Inside the grand ballroom, the atmosphere was lively. Guests mingled over champagne, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Michael spotted Laura and Jason almost immediately. They stood near the bar, laughing and sharing quiet, intimate touches. His chest tightened, but Rachel's steady presence kept him focused. As the night progressed, Rachel gave a subtle nod to the private investigator, who was stationed near the stage. It was time. A hush fell over the room as the lights dimmed, and a video began playing on the large screen at the front of the ballroom. At first, the footage seemed harmless, shots of Jason and Laura entering restaurants, sitting together at tables. But as the clips progressed, their intimacy became undeniable. Gasps rippled through the crowd as the evidence piled up. Kisses, embraces, whispered conversations. The final nail in the coffin was the audio recording of their hotel rendezvous. Michael scanned the room, watching as Laura's face drained of color and Jason's confident smirk faltered. The betrayal was out in the open now, and there was no escape. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps turned into whispers, whispers into murmurs, and soon, a wave of stunned voices filled the grand ballroom. All eyes were on Jason and Laura, their betrayal projected onto the massive screen for everyone to see. Jason's once confident posture collapsed as he turned to Laura, his face pale and panicked. Laura, frozen in shock, looked around desperately, searching for an exit. Michael and Rachel stood at the back of the room, their expressions cold and resolute. "They can't spin their way out of this," Rachel whispered, her voice laced with satisfaction. Laura stumbled forward, her voice cracking. This is fake," she shouted, trying to mask her fear with defiance. "Whoever did this is lying." But the evidence was irrefutable. Every photo, every recording, every timestamp aligned perfectly. The crowd didn't believe her excuses, and neither did Jason's colleagues, many of whom were now glaring at him in disbelief. Jason tried to salvage the situation. "This isn't what it looks like," he stammered, his voice weak. But no one was buying it. The evidence spoke louder than his words. Michael stepped forward, his voice steady and cutting through the noise. "It's exactly what it looks like. And both of you thought you could get away with it?" The room fell silent again as everyone turned toward Michael. For the first time that night, Laura's eyes met his. There was no love or remorse in her gaze, just panic and shame. Michael's heart ached, but he refused to let it show. This was her doing, and now she had to face the consequences. Michael's words hung in the air, heavy with finality. Laura's facade cracked further as she stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Jason, meanwhile, tried to regain control of the situation, stepping in front of Laura as if to shield her. "Michael," he began, his voice low and pleading, "you don't understand." "Save it," Michael interrupted, his tone sharp and unwavering. "You lied. Both of you. And now everyone knows exactly who you are." Rachel joined Michael at the front of the room, her presence commanding. She pointed toward Jason, her expression filled with disdain. "And you," she said coldly, "you've been lying to me for months. Sneaking around, pretending to be a loving husband while you destroyed 2 families." Jason's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He knew there was no defense. The crowd watched in stunned silence as Rachel continued, her voice rising with righteous anger. "I trusted you, Jason. I believed in you. And you repaid me by humiliating me." Laura finally found her voice, her tone desperate. "Michael, please, let's go somewhere private and talk. This isn't how it looks, I can explain." Michael shook his head. "You had months to talk to me, Laura. You chose lies instead. I'm done listening." Rachel glanced at Michael and nodded. The confrontation was over. Laura and Jason's secrets were laid bare, and the humiliation they felt was only the beginning of their reckoning. As the crowd dispersed, the whispers and stares lingered, following Laura and Jason like shadows. They tried to retreat into a corner, but it was no use. The damage was done. Michael and Rachel walked outside together, the crisp night air offering a moment of clarity. Michael leaned against his car, running a hand through his hair. "It's over," he said softly, though his voice carried no relief. The pain of betrayal still weighed heavily on him. Rachel stood beside him, her expression contemplative. "It's not over for them," she replied. "They're going to feel the consequences of this for a long time." Michael nodded, his thoughts swirling. While exposing the truth had brought him a sense of justice, it hadn't erased the hurt. "What now?" he asked, his voice quieter. Rachel shrugged, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "We move on. They don't deserve any more of our time or energy." Michael looked at her, gratitude in his eyes. Rachel had been a stranger just weeks ago, but now she felt like an ally in his darkest moment. "Thank you," he said earnestly. "For everything." Rachel smiled, her strength shining through. "We helped each other. That's what matters." As they parted ways, Michael felt the first glimmer of hope for the future. While the scars of betrayal would remain, he knew he wasn't alone in picking up the pieces. The aftermath of the gala rippled far beyond the walls of the ballroom. By the next morning, whispers of the scandal had spread like wildfire. Social media buzzed with speculation as photos and videos from the event surfaced online. Both Laura and Jason found themselves at the center of unwanted attention, their carefully constructed lives unraveling before their eyes. At her office, Laura faced cold stares and hushed conversations from her co-workers. Her manager called her into a private meeting, citing concerns about her professional reputation. Laura's attempts to explain the situation fell flat. The evidence was damning and her credibility was in tatters. For the first time, she felt the weight of her actions pressing down on her. Jason's downfall was equally swift. His colleagues, many of whom had witnessed the confrontation firsthand, began distancing themselves from him. Investors in his company demanded answers, and whispers of a possible board vote to remove him as CEO grew louder. Jason's polished image as a family man had been obliterated, replaced by the harsh reality of his betrayal. Meanwhile, Michael and Rachel watched from a distance as their former spouses struggled to keep their lives intact. Though neither took pleasure in the chaos, there was a sense of vindication in knowing the truth had come to light. For Michael, the storm was far from over, but he felt a sense of closure beginning to take root. Michael sat on his porch with a cup of coffee, the morning sun casting a warm glow over his Boston neighborhood. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself to breathe deeply. The confrontation had been a turning point, but the road ahead was uncertain. Betrayal left scars, and trust wasn't something he could rebuild overnight, even with himself. Rachel called that afternoon. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her tone softer than usual. Michael hesitated before answering. "I'm managing," he admitted. "But it's strange. For so long I focused on uncovering the truth. Now that it's out, I don't know what comes next." Rachel chuckled lightly. "It's called healing. And it's messy, but you'll get there." They talked for an hour, sharing updates about how their lives had changed since the gala. Rachel revealed that she had filed for divorce from Jason, her voice steady as she spoke. "I deserve better," she said simply, and Michael couldn't agree more. As the days passed, Michael found himself re-evaluating his own life. His work, his friendships, even his hobbies, all had taken a backseat to his marriage. Now he was determined to reclaim those parts of himself. He started going to the gym, reconnecting with old friends, and even picking up a paintbrush for the first time in years. The process wasn't easy, but for the first time in a long time, Michael felt like he was moving forward. Weeks turned into months and slowly the wounds began to heal. Michael finalized his divorce from Laura, a process that was painful but necessary. Despite her attempts to reconcile, Michael stood firm. "I can't rebuild what you destroyed," he told her during their final meeting. His words carried no anger, only a quiet resignation. Rachel too had started a new chapter. She moved out of the house she had shared with Jason and began focusing on her career and personal growth. She and Michael stayed in touch, their shared experience forging an unexpected bond. Though their conversations were less frequent, they always felt meaningful. One evening, Michael attended a community art exhibit where one of his paintings was displayed. To his surprise, Rachel was there, her smile warm as she approached him. "I didn't know you were an artist," she said, admiring his work. Michael shrugged, a hint of a smile on his lips. "It's something I've always loved but forgot along the way." Rachel nodded, her eyes meeting his. "I think we both forgot a lot of things about ourselves. But it's never too late to start over." As the night went on, Michael and Rachel talked about their hopes for the future. For the first time in a long while, the past felt like a distant shadow rather than a looming presence. They didn't know where life would take them, but one thing was clear: they had survived the worst and emerged stronger. Months after the dramatic confrontation, Michael found himself enjoying a newfound sense of peace. His life wasn't perfect, but it was finally his own. One evening as he walked through Boston Common, he spotted Rachel sitting on a park bench, a book in her lap and a serene expression on her face. "Rachel?" he called out, surprised to see her there. She looked up, startled at first, but her face broke into a smile. "Michael. What are the odds?" she replied, closing her book and gesturing for him to join her. They exchanged updates about their lives. Rachel had recently started a new job in nonprofit management, a career shift she said felt meaningful and fulfilling. Michael spoke about his art and how it had become a form of therapy for him. As they talked, the conversation felt effortless, as if no time had passed since their last meeting. "Funny how life works," Rachel said, her tone reflective. "If it weren't for all that chaos, I don't think I'd be sitting here today feeling free." Michael nodded, understanding her sentiment. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what really matters." Their conversation stretched into the evening, the warm glow of streetlights casting soft shadows on the ground. As they parted ways, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that his connection with Rachel was growing deeper, evolving into something neither of them had expected. The chance encounter at the park wasn't the last time Michael and Rachel crossed paths. Over the next few weeks, they bumped into each other at local events, coffee shops, and even the grocery store. Each meeting felt serendipitous, as if the universe was nudging them together. During one of these encounters, Rachel invited Michael to join her for a volunteer event her organization was hosting. "It's nothing fancy, just a community cleanup," she said, her smile warm. "But it's for a good cause." Michael hesitated at first but eventually agreed. The event turned out to be more enjoyable than he anticipated. Working side by side with Rachel, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her passion for helping others was infectious, and Michael found himself inspired by her energy. As the day ended, they sat on a curb, sweaty and tired but content. "You're different now," Rachel said, glancing at him. "Stronger. Happier." Michael chuckled. "Coming from you, that means a lot. You've changed too, Rachel. You've found your footing." Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to fall away. Neither of them said anything, but the connection between them was undeniable. Still, neither dared to acknowledge it, at least not yet. A few days after the cleanup event, Michael worked up the courage to call Rachel. He hesitated as the phone rang, wondering if he was overstepping. When she answered, her cheerful tone put him at ease. "I was wondering," he began, "if you'd like to have dinner sometime." "My treat." Rachel paused, and for a moment, Michael feared he'd made a mistake. But then she laughed softly. "Are you asking me on a date, Michael?" Her question caught him off guard, but he decided to be honest. "Maybe I am," he admitted. "What do you think?" Rachel was quiet for a beat before responding. "I think I'd like that." The dinner was simple, a cozy Italian restaurant tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. They talked about everything and nothing, laughing over shared memories and trading stories about their childhoods. For the first time in years, Michael felt a genuine spark of joy. As they walked out of the restaurant, the cool night air brushing against their skin, Rachel turned to Michael with a soft smile. "Thank you for tonight. I didn't realize how much I needed this." Michael smiled back, his heart lighter than it had been in a long time. "Neither did I." The night marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, healing, and the possibility of love. As the days turned into weeks, Michael and Rachel's connection deepened. Their dinner marked the start of a new dynamic between them, one rooted in mutual respect and a shared understanding of their past struggles. Michael found himself looking forward to their conversations, their laughs, and the ease with which they could share silence. Rachel, too, felt a sense of comfort she hadn't experienced in years. With Michael, she didn't have to pretend. She could be herself, flaws, scars, and all. Slowly, their shared history of pain became a foundation for something stronger, something more hopeful. One evening, as they walked along the Charles River, Michael hesitated before speaking. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" he asked, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Rachel glanced at him, her expression thoughtful. "I try to focus on the present," she said. "But yeah, I think about it. I think about us." Michael stopped walking, turning to face her. "Rachel, I don't know where this is going, but I know I don't want to lose what we've started." Rachel smiled, her eyes softening. "Neither do I." For the first time since their respective betrayals, both felt a flicker of hope for the future. A future that didn't have to be defined by their past. Despite the progress Michael and Rachel had made, remnants of their past lingered like shadows. For Michael, reminders of Laura's betrayal still stung. He would catch himself wondering if he had missed the warning signs or if he had been too trusting. For Rachel, the occasional glimpse of Jason in public left her with a bitter taste. One day, while running errands, Michael unexpectedly ran into Laura. She was standing in line at a coffee shop, her once confident demeanor replaced with something more subdued. When she spotted him, she hesitated before approaching. "Michael," she said softly, her tone tentative. "Can we talk?" Michael's first instinct was to turn away, but something made him pause. Perhaps it was the closure he had never fully gotten. "Make it quick," he replied. Laura's voice cracked as she spoke. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. I know I can't undo what I did, but I need you to know I regret it." Michael studied her, searching for sincerity. "I appreciate the apology," he said finally. "But it doesn't change what happened. I've moved on, Laura. I suggest you do the same." As he walked away, Michael felt a surprising sense of peace. The encounter, though unexpected, gave him the closure he didn't realize he needed. Rachel's past came knocking as well. While attending a networking event for her nonprofit work, she found herself face-to-face with Jason. He looked uncomfortable, his usual charm replaced with awkwardness. "Rachel," he said, his voice strained. "Can we talk?" Rachel's instinct was to walk away, but she decided against it. "Make it quick," she said, echoing Michael's words from days before. Jason fumbled for words. "I wanted to apologize. I messed up and I know I hurt you. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry." Rachel's gaze was steady, her voice firm. "Jason, your apology doesn't erase the pain you caused. I've moved on and you should too." Jason nodded, looking defeated. "I hope you find happiness," he said quietly before walking away. That evening, Rachel called Michael to share the encounter. "It's strange," she admitted. "Hearing Jason apologize didn't change anything for me. But it felt good to finally put that chapter behind me." Michael smiled on the other end of the line. "Sounds like we're both moving forward." As they ended the call, both Michael and Rachel felt a renewed sense of clarity. The past no longer held the power it once did, and the future was theirs to shape. Michael and Rachel's bond grew stronger with each passing day, but they both knew they carried scars that needed healing. One evening, while they shared coffee at Rachel's apartment, their conversation took a reflective turn. "Do you ever wonder if we're moving too fast?" Rachel asked, her fingers tracing the rim of her mug. Michael paused, considering her question. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I think it's because we're scared of making the same mistakes. What we went through, it's not something either of us wants to relive." Rachel nodded. "It's just hard to trust again, you know? Even when you feel like you're ready, there's always that little voice in the back of your head reminding you of what went wrong." Michael reached for her hand, his grip warm and steady. "We're not them, Rachel. And what we're building here, it's different. We've seen the worst of betrayal. Maybe that's why we understand each other so well." Rachel smiled, her eyes softening. You always know what to say. They spent the rest of the evening talking, their vulnerabilities shared like pieces of a puzzle coming together. For the first time they felt a sense of safety, not because their fears had vanished but because they faced them together. One quiet Sunday morning, Michael was startled by a knock at his door. When he opened it, he was met by Laura, standing on the porch with an envelope in her hand. Her appearance was disheveled, and her expression was a mix of guilt and desperation. I know you don't want to see me, she began, her voice trembling, but I need to give you this. Michael hesitated before taking the envelope. What is it? He asked, his tone wary. It's everything, Laura said. Bank statements, messages, the truth about the life I've been living. I'm trying to come clean, for myself, not to win you back. Michael opened the envelope and scanned the contents. It was a detailed account of Laura's actions, including financial support she had provided Jason during their affair. The betrayal was deeper than he had imagined, but the honesty in her gesture surprised him. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Laura continued. I just needed to face what I did. And I thought you deserved to know everything. Michael nodded, his voice calm. Thank you for being honest. It's too late to fix anything between us, but maybe this will help you move forward. As Laura left, Michael felt a strange mix of emotions: anger, relief, and a sense of finality. The chapter with Laura was finally closed. Later that evening, Michael shared the encounter with Rachel. As he recounted Laura's visit, Rachel listened intently, her expression thoughtful. How do you feel about it? She asked. Michael sighed, leaning back in his chair. I'm not sure. Angry, of course. But also, lighter. Like she gave me the closure I didn't know I needed. Rachel nodded. That makes sense. Closure isn't always about forgiveness. Sometimes it's just about knowing you have all the pieces of the story. Michael reached for her hand, grateful for her understanding. You've been through so much, Rachel. I don't know if I could have handled any of this without you. Rachel smiled, squeezing his hand. We've helped each other, Michael. And we'll keep doing that. Their relationship felt stronger than ever, built on honesty and mutual support. As they sat together, the weight of the past seemed to fade, replaced by the promise of a future they were creating, one step at a time. Michael's life had stabilized, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of control. Inspired by Rachel's work in the nonprofit sector, he decided to channel his energy into something meaningful. He had always been passionate about art but never thought of it as more than a hobby. One evening, over dinner with Rachel, he shared his idea. I've been thinking about starting a community art program, he said, his tone cautious. A place where people can use creativity to heal like I did. Rachel's face lit up. That's an amazing idea, Michael. You've been through so much, and this could be a way to help others find their strength. Encouraged by her support, Michael began drafting plans for the program. He envisioned workshops for people dealing with trauma, classes for kids from underprivileged backgrounds, and even exhibitions to showcase their work. Rachel offered to connect him with contacts in her network, and together they began laying the groundwork. As Michael poured himself into the project, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pain of the past no longer defined him. Instead, it fueled his determination to create something good. With Rachel by his side, he knew he was on the right path. While Michael was embarking on his new venture, Rachel faced her own professional hurdles. Her nonprofit had recently taken on a challenging project, providing resources for victims of domestic abuse. The work was emotionally taxing but deeply rewarding, and Rachel threw herself into it wholeheartedly. One afternoon, as she and her team were preparing for a fundraising event, a colleague approached her with a concerned expression. We just received news that one of our major donors is pulling out, they said. Rachel's heart sank. The donor had been instrumental in funding their programs, and losing their support could jeopardize the entire project. Determined not to let that happen, Rachel sprang into action. She reached out to her network, rallying support from smaller donors and local businesses. When she told Michael about the situation that evening, he offered to help. Let me reach out to some people I know, he said. We can't let this project fail. Rachel was touched by his willingness to support her cause. Together they worked late into the night, brainstorming ideas and contacting potential donors. By the end of the week, Rachel's team had managed to secure enough funding to keep the project afloat. It was a hard-won victory, and Rachel felt immense gratitude for Michael's partnership. The night of the fundraising event arrived, and Michael attended to show his support for Rachel. The venue buzzed with activity as guests mingled and shared stories of resilience and hope. Michael was struck by the sense of community Rachel had built through her work. As the evening progressed, Rachel took the stage to thank the donors and share the impact of their contributions. Her speech was heartfelt and inspiring, leaving the audience in awe. Michael watched her with admiration, marveling at her strength and dedication. After the event, Rachel found Michael near the dessert table. "You were incredible up there," he said, his smile warm. Rachel laughed softly. "I couldn't have done it without you. Your support means everything to me." They stood together, basking in the success of the evening. For both of them, it felt like a turning point, a moment where their individual journeys converged into a shared purpose. The past no longer felt like a burden, but a stepping stone toward the life they were building together. The success of the fundraiser marked a new chapter in Michael and Rachel's lives. Their bond grew stronger, not just as individuals healing from betrayal but as partners working toward shared goals. Michael's community art program began to take shape, thanks to Rachel's network and Michael's dedication. One evening, as they worked late at Rachel's apartment, Michael presented her with a sketchbook. "I've been working on this," he said, sliding it across the table. "It's an idea for the program's logo and some promotional material." Rachel flipped through the pages, her face lighting up with each design. "Michael, these are beautiful," she said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "Your work isn't just art, it's inspiring." Her words filled Michael with a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years. For so long he had doubted himself, but Rachel's belief in him reignited his confidence. "I want this program to be a reflection of everything I've learned," he said. "That healing is possible even after the worst pain." Rachel placed her hand on his. "And I'll be here to help you every step of the way." Despite their progress, the ghosts of their pasts occasionally resurfaced. One afternoon, as Michael prepared to present his program to a local community center, he received an unexpected text from Laura. The message was brief. "I heard about what you're doing. I'm proud of you." Michael stared at the screen, conflicted. He hadn't spoken to Laura since her last visit, and the message reopened old wounds he thought had healed. He debated whether to respond but ultimately decided against it. Her words, though kind, felt like an intrusion on the life he was rebuilding. Later he shared the moment with Rachel. "I don't know why it still gets to me," he admitted. "I've moved on, but hearing from her still stirs something inside." Rachel nodded, understanding the complexity of his emotions. "It's normal, Michael. Betrayal leaves scars even when you've healed. But you've come so far, and you're not the same person you were." Her reassurance reminded Michael of how far he had come. He resolved to let go of Laura's lingering presence and focus on the life he was creating, not the one he had lost. Michael's program officially launched, and the community response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life attended the workshops, each carrying their own stories of pain and healing. Michael felt a deep sense of fulfillment as he guided participants through creative exercises, watching them find solace in their work. Rachel was a constant presence, volunteering her time to help organize events and connect participants with resources. Her ability to empathize and support others was unmatched, and Michael often marveled at her strength. One evening, as they packed up after a particularly successful workshop, Michael turned to Rachel. "You've done so much for me for this program. I don't think I could have done it without you." Rachel smiled, her eyes shining with emotion. "And you've reminded me of what it means to believe in something bigger than myself." We've helped each other, Michael. Their shared achievements felt like a culmination of everything they had endured. Together they weren't just building a program, they were building a life rooted in trust, resilience, and hope. Michael's community art program continued to grow, becoming a beacon of hope for those who had endured hardships. Each workshop brought new faces, each carrying unique stories of loss, resilience, and healing. One evening, as he guided a group through a painting exercise, a young woman named Lisa approached him. Her trembling hands held a half-finished canvas. "Thank you for this," she said softly, her voice breaking. "I lost my husband last year and I felt so alone. But tonight, for the first time, I feel understood." Michael smiled warmly, his heart swelling with purpose. "Art has a way of speaking when words can't," he replied. "You're not alone, Lisa. Everyone here is part of something bigger." Rachel, who was helping organize materials at the back of the room, overheard the exchange and felt a pang of pride. Watching Michael connect with people so deeply reminded her of why she had been drawn to him. He wasn't just healing himself, he was helping others find their way too. After the workshop, Rachel and Michael sat together, reflecting on the evening. "You're really making a difference, Michael," Rachel said, her voice filled with admiration. "People need this. They need you." Michael looked at her, his expression thoughtful. "We're doing this together, Rachel. I couldn't have done it without you." Rachel blushed slightly, feeling the depth of his words. Their partnership wasn't just professional, it was personal, rooted in mutual respect and an understanding of what it meant to rebuild after being broken. Together, they were creating a space where others could find strength in community, just as they had found strength in each other. The peace they had built was tested unexpectedly one afternoon when Rachel received an email from Jason. The subject line simply read, "Can we talk?" Her hands trembled as she opened it, finding a lengthy message filled with apologies and pleas for forgiveness. Jason claimed he had changed, that losing her had been the wake-up call he needed to become a better man. Rachel felt a swirl of emotions, anger, sadness, and even a flicker of doubt. She had moved on, but Jason's words stirred memories she had worked hard to bury. Unsure of how to handle the situation, she shared the email with Michael that evening. "He says he's changed," Rachel said, her voice shaky. "But I don't know if I can believe him. Or if I even want to." Michael listened carefully, his expression calm. "You don't owe him anything, Rachel. Not your time, your energy, or your forgiveness. But if responding will give you closure, do it. Just don't let him pull you back into his world." Rachel nodded, taking strength from Michael's unwavering support. That night she drafted a reply, short and to the point. "I appreciate your apology, but I've moved on. Please don't contact me again." As she hit send, Rachel felt a sense of finality. Jason's chapter in her life was truly over, and for the first time she felt free of his shadow. Months passed, and the art program reached a significant milestone, a public exhibition showcasing the work of its participants. The event was held at a local gallery, drawing a crowd of supporters including local artists, community leaders, and those whose lives the program had touched. Michael stood at the center of the room, watching as guests admired the artwork. Each piece told a story of resilience, from the bold strokes of a painting representing survival to the delicate details of a sculpture symbolizing hope. His heart swelled with pride, knowing how far the program, and its participants, had come. Rachel arrived shortly after the event began, wearing a dress that made Michael's breath catch. "You've outdone yourself," she said, beaming as she took his arm. "This is incredible." Michael smiled, his eyes full of gratitude. "We've outdone ourselves. None of this would have been possible without you." As the evening progressed, Michael took the stage to thank everyone who had supported the program. "This isn't just about art," he said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "It's about healing, about finding strength in the things that break us. Tonight is proof that even the darkest moments can lead to something beautiful." The crowd erupted into applause, and Michael felt a wave of fulfillment unlike anything he had ever experienced. Rachel met him afterward, her eyes glistening. "You're changing lives, Michael. Including mine." He squeezed her hand, knowing her words carried a deeper truth. Together they had built something extraordinary, something that reminded them both of the power of hope and the promise of a brighter future. The success of the art exhibition marked a turning point for Michael and his program. The positive feedback flooded in, with many attendees expressing interest in expanding the initiative. One morning, as Michael and Rachel shared coffee in his kitchen, Michael brought up an idea that had been brewing in his mind. "I've been thinking," he began, his tone careful. "What if we expanded the program? Not just workshops but art therapy sessions, collaborations with schools, and even community mural projects." Rachel's face lit up. "That's a brilliant idea, Michael. This program has already touched so many lives. Taking it further could make an even bigger impact." Michael hesitated. "It's a big step though. I'm not sure I can do it alone." Rachel reached across the table, her hand covering his. "You're not alone, Michael. I'll help you just like before. Together we can make this happen." Her words filled Michael with a sense of determination. He realized that the trust they had built wasn't just in their personal relationship, it extended to their shared vision for the future. Over the next few days they began drafting plans, reaching out to potential partners, and laying the groundwork for a new chapter in the program's journey. Just as things seemed to be falling into place, Michael received an unexpected letter in the mail. The envelope was unmarked, but the handwriting was unmistakable. It was from Laura. He opened it hesitantly, finding a handwritten note that read, "I heard about your program and I'm proud of what you've achieved. I hope you find happiness." The note stirred conflicting emotions in Michael. He shared it with Rachel that evening, unsure of how to process it. "I don't know why she keeps reaching out," he admitted. "It feels like she's trying to hold on to something that's already gone." Rachel studied the letter carefully. "Maybe this is her way of seeking closure," she said. "But you've moved on, Michael. You don't owe her anything." Michael nodded, realizing Rachel was right. He decided not to respond. Laura's words, though kind, didn't belong in the life he was building now. That chapter of his life was closed, and he intended to keep it that way. As Michael and Rachel worked to expand the program, they faced countless challenges. Securing funding, coordinating with local organizations, and recruiting volunteers required endless effort and patience. But their passion for the project kept them moving forward. One afternoon, as they visited a local school to pitch their idea for a mural collaboration, Michael found himself inspired by the enthusiasm of the students. They listened eagerly as he explained the project, their faces lighting up with excitement. After the meeting, Michael turned to Rachel with a smile. "This is why we're doing this," he said. "To give people, especially kids, a chance to express themselves." Rachel nodded, her expression filled with pride. "You're not just giving them a chance to create art. You're giving them hope, Michael. That's something they'll carry with them forever." The school agreed to partner with them, marking a significant milestone in the program's growth. That evening, as Michael and Rachel celebrated with dinner at their favorite restaurant, Michael raised a toast. "To us," he said, his voice warm. "And to everything we're building." Rachel clinked her glass against his, her smile radiant. "To us." For the first time in years, they both felt like they were exactly where they were meant to be. The school mural project became a cornerstone of Michael's expanded program. Over the following weeks, he and Rachel worked closely with students, guiding them through the creative process. Each design reflected the young artist's dreams, fears, and triumphs, transforming blank walls into vibrant stories. One morning, as Michael supervised a group of students painting a colorful sunrise, a young boy named Caleb approached him hesitantly. "Mr. Michael," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "my dad says art isn't important. But this feels important to me." Michael knelt to Caleb's level, his heart aching at the boy's words. "Art is more than just pictures or colors," he said gently. "It's a way to show the world how you feel, even when words aren't enough. What you're doing here matters." Caleb's face lit up with a shy smile before he returned to his section of the wall, painting with newfound confidence. Watching him, Michael felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was why he had started the program, to give others the hope and validation he had once sought for himself. That evening, as he and Rachel admired the progress of the mural, Michael turned to her with a smile. "This project is becoming more than I ever imagined." Rachel nodded, her eyes reflecting his pride. "That's because you're doing more than just creating art, Michael. You're changing lives." Despite the program's success, Michael occasionally struggled with self-doubt. The weight of responsibility sometimes felt overwhelming, and the fear of failure lingered at the edges of his mind. One night, as he and Rachel worked late on funding proposals, Michael let out a heavy sigh. "Do you ever wonder if we're in over our heads?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "What if this all falls apart?" Rachel set down her pen and looked at him thoughtfully. "Of course I've wondered. But you've already proven you can overcome so much, Michael. You turned your pain into something beautiful. That's not something everyone can do." Her words struck a chord, reminding Michael of how far he had come. "I guess it's easy to forget the progress when you're in the middle of it," he admitted. Rachel smiled. "That's why we have each other, to remind ourselves that we're capable, even when it feels like we're not." Michael nodded, his resolve strengthening. Together, they returned to their work, their partnership a steady anchor in the storm of uncertainty. As the mural project neared completion, the school organized a public unveiling ceremony. Parents, teachers, and community members gathered to celebrate the students' hard work and the impact of Michael's program. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as guests admired the vibrant artwork. Michael stood at the front of the crowd, his heart swelling with pride as he addressed the audience. "This mural is more than just paint on a wall," he said. It's a testament to the creativity and resilience of these incredible students. They've shown us all that art has the power to heal and unite. The crowd erupted in applause, and Michael felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. He caught Rachel's eye in the audience, her smile radiating encouragement. After the ceremony, she joined him by the mural, her voice filled with admiration. "You've created something truly special, Michael. And you've inspired so many people in the process." Michael looked at her, his expression warm. "I couldn't have done it without you, Rachel. You've been my constant through all of this." As they stood together, surrounded by the vibrant colors of the mural and the joyful energy of the crowd, Michael realized that his journey was no longer about leaving the past behind. It was about building a future, one filled with hope, love, and purpose. The success of the mural project garnered attention beyond the school's community. Local businesses and organizations reached out to Michael, eager to collaborate with his program. One afternoon, while reviewing emails in his small office, Michael received an invitation from a prominent Boston art gallery. "They want to feature the mural project in an upcoming exhibition," Michael told Rachel, excitement lighting up his face as they sat across from each other. Rachel's eyes widened. "That's incredible. This could take the program to an entirely new level." The gallery's curator, Sarah, proposed a unique partnership, hosting a citywide art initiative focused on using creativity to address social challenges. The idea resonated deeply with Michael and Rachel, and after a few meetings they signed on to co-lead the project. "Think of what we can accomplish," Rachel said as they walked home after a meeting with the gallery. "This isn't just about Boston, it's about inspiring other communities to do the same." Michael smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude for Rachel's unwavering support. "I couldn't ask for a better partner in this." Just as the partnership with the gallery gained momentum, an unexpected challenge threatened to derail their progress. The program's primary sponsor, a local corporation, announced budget cuts that included withdrawing their financial support. The news hit Michael hard. "This funding was crucial," he told Rachel, pacing in his office. "Without it, we'll have to scale back everything we've planned." Rachel placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "We've faced worse, Michael. We'll figure this out. Let's reach out to new donors, organize a fundraiser, whatever it takes." Michael nodded, her words grounding him. Together, they devised a plan to raise the necessary funds. Rachel tapped into her nonprofit connections, while Michael reached out to former participants of the program who might be willing to support the cause. The challenge tested their resolve, but it also reminded them of the strength they had built together. "We've come too far to let this stop us," Rachel said one evening. "And I know we'll make it through." The fundraiser became a rallying cry for the community. Rachel and Michael organized an event at the same gallery that had partnered with them, showcasing art created by participants from the program. The evening combined live painting demonstrations, auctions, and heartfelt stories shared by those whose lives had been transformed. Michael took the stage midway through the event, addressing the crowd with sincerity. "This program started as a way to heal myself after the darkest time in my life," he said. "But it's become so much more. It's proof that art can bring people together, heal wounds, and inspire hope." The room erupted into applause, and the energy was infectious. By the end of the night, they had not only met their fundraising goal but surpassed it. Former participants, local leaders, and even strangers eager to support their cause contributed generously. Afterward, as they packed up the event, Rachel turned to Michael with a smile. "We did it," she said, her voice filled with pride. Michael nodded, his heart full. "No," he corrected gently. "You did it. I couldn't have done this without you." Their victory was more than just financial. It was a testament to the strength of their partnership and the resilience of the community they had built together. With the success of the fundraiser and renewed funding, Michael's program gained momentum like never before. The gallery partnership flourished, and their citywide initiative began attracting attention from other organizations across Massachusetts. Rachel suggested reaching out to art programs in neighboring cities, turning their local project into a statewide movement. "What if we built a network of art therapy programs?" Rachel proposed during a brainstorming session. "We could share resources, collaborate on projects, and reach even more people." Michael's eyes lit up at the idea. "That's ambitious," he said with a grin. "But I love it." Over the next few weeks, they held meetings with community leaders from nearby towns. Their vision expanded to include traveling workshops, mobile art exhibits, and partnerships with schools and shelters across the region. Michael and Rachel worked tirelessly, fueled by the passion they shared for making a difference. Their efforts began to pay off. More schools signed on to collaborate and local businesses offered support. As the initiative grew, so did the sense of purpose driving Michael and Rachel forward. Their program was no longer just a project. It was becoming a movement. As their work expanded, Michael and Rachel took a rare evening off to celebrate their progress. Over dinner, they reflected on how far they had come, not just in their professional lives but also in their personal growth. "It's hard to believe," Michael said, swirling his glass of wine, "that all of this started from such a painful place." Rachel nodded. "I think that's what makes it so meaningful. We took something broken and turned it into something beautiful." Their conversation turned introspective as they discussed the past. Michael shared more about his struggles after discovering Laura's betrayal, while Rachel opened up about the doubts she'd faced after her marriage ended. Each story reinforced the strength they had found in each other. "I used to think I'd never trust anyone again," Rachel admitted. "But you've shown me that it's possible." Michael reached for her hand, his expression tender. "And you've shown me that healing isn't just about moving on. It's about finding something worth holding on to." The moment was quiet but profound, solidifying the bond they had built through shared experiences and mutual understanding. A few days later, Michael received an unexpected phone call from a prominent nonprofit organization. The caller, a director named Amanda, explained that she had been following Michael's program and was impressed by its impact. "We're looking for someone to lead a national initiative focused on using art to address trauma," Amanda said. "Your work aligns perfectly with our vision. Would you be interested in discussing this opportunity further?" Michael was stunned. The offer was a testament to how far his program had come, but it also raised questions about what it might mean for his future, and for his partnership with Rachel. That evening he shared the news with Rachel. "This could be huge for the program," he said, his excitement tempered by uncertainty. "But it would mean stepping away from some of the work we've built here." Rachel listened carefully before responding. "Michael, this is an incredible opportunity. But the real question is, what do you want?" Michael paused, considering her words. The decision would shape the next chapter of his life, and he knew it wouldn't be easy. Whatever he chose, he wanted Rachel by his side. Michael sat in his office, the weight of Amanda's offer pressing on him. The opportunity was unlike anything he had imagined, a chance to take his work nationwide, to expand his impact beyond Boston. Yet, the thought of leaving behind the program he and Rachel had nurtured filled him with uncertainty. That evening, as he met Rachel for dinner, the decision weighed heavily on his mind. Over plates of pasta and glasses of wine, Michael shared his thoughts. "This could change everything," he said, his tone thoughtful. "But it feels like walking away from something we've worked so hard to build." Rachel listened intently, her expression calm but supportive. "You don't have to choose between them," she said. "You've built something incredible here, Michael. Expanding your reach doesn't mean abandoning it, it means trusting the team we've built to carry it forward." Her words offered clarity, and Michael began to see the opportunity as less of a departure and more of an evolution. "You're right," he said after a long pause. "But it's scary. Letting go of control even a little isn't easy." Rachel smiled softly. "Big changes never are. But I know you, Michael. You'll make the right choice, not just for yourself but for the program and the people it serves." Her confidence in him was grounding, and for the first time since receiving the offer, Michael felt a sense of direction. The conversation shifted to logistics. What stepping into a national role would mean and how to ensure the local program remained strong. By the end of the night, Michael felt lighter, his path forward clearer. The next day he called Amanda back. "I'd like to discuss the offer in more detail," he said, his voice steady. The decision wasn't final, but it was a step. Amanda arranged a meeting with Michael to discuss the role in depth. As they sat in her sleek downtown office, she laid out the vision. A nationwide initiative connecting local communities through art, focusing on underserved populations. It was ambitious, inspiring, and daunting all at once. "You'd have the freedom to shape this program," Amanda explained. "Your work in Boston would serve as the blueprint, but this is about scaling it to reach as many people as possible." Michael listened carefully, his mind racing with possibilities. The role was everything he had dreamed of, a chance to amplify the impact of his work, but it came with significant challenges. It meant more travel, more responsibility, and less time to focus on the local program he loved. When he shared the details with Rachel that evening, she was nothing but supportive. "This is your calling," she said firmly. "We've always talked about how much more this program could be. This is your chance to make it happen." Michael nodded, her words resonating deeply. "I just don't want to lose what we've built here," he admitted. "This program feels like home." Rachel reached for his hand, her touch reassuring. "You won't lose it. And you won't be doing this alone. You have a team here who believes in your vision just like I do." Over the next week, Michael began preparing for the transition. He met with his local team to discuss leadership succession, ensuring the program would continue to thrive in his partial absence. With Rachel's help, he mapped out a plan to balance his new responsibilities while staying connected to his roots. By the time he signed the contract with Amanda, Michael felt ready. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was one he was determined to walk with purpose. The day Michael announced his new role to the local team was bittersweet. He gathered his staff, volunteers, and supporters in the community center where it had all begun. The room buzzed with anticipation as Michael stood before them, his heart full but heavy. "I want to start by saying thank you," he began, his voice steady but emotional. "This program wouldn't exist without each of you. Together we've built something that has changed lives, including mine." He paused, scanning the room, meeting the eyes of those who had been with him from the start. "I've been given an opportunity to take what we've created here and bring it to a larger scale. It's not an easy decision, but I believe it's the right one. This isn't goodbye, it's a step forward." The announcement was met with applause, though some faces showed sadness at the change. Rachel stood at the back of the room, her smile steady, radiating pride and encouragement. After the meeting, she approached Michael, her voice soft but firm. "You handled that beautifully." Michael exhaled, relief washing over him. "It feels like the right thing," he said. "But it doesn't make it easy." Rachel smiled. "The best things in life rarely are." That evening, Michael and Rachel stood outside the community center, the city lights twinkling around them. "This isn't just my journey," Michael said, turning to Rachel. "It's ours. I don't want to do this without you." Rachel's eyes softened, her hand finding his. "You're not doing it without me, Michael. Wherever this takes you, I'll be right there with you." Their promise to each other felt unshakable, a testament to the strength they had built together. As they walked away hand in hand, they looked forward to a future filled with new challenges and endless possibilities. Michael's first weeks in his new role as director of the national initiative were a whirlwind of meetings, strategy sessions, and planning. Amanda had been right. The program he built in Boston served as a strong foundation, but scaling it to a national level was an entirely different challenge. He traveled to cities across the country, meeting with local leaders and artists to identify communities that could benefit most from the initiative. Each visit left him inspired by the talent and resilience of the people he met. But with inspiration came the immense pressure to succeed. This wasn't just about art anymore, it was about building a movement. One evening, while on a video call with Rachel, Michael confided his feelings. "Sometimes it feels like I'm in over my head," he admitted. "The scale of this is so much bigger than I imagined." Rachel's voice was steady, her presence calming even through the screen. "You're not in this alone, Michael. You've built something amazing before and you'll do it again. Just take it one step at a time." Her encouragement reminded him of why he had taken on this challenge. By the end of the call, Michael felt reinvigorated. He knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but with Rachel by his side, even from a distance, he felt ready to take it on. As Michael navigated his new role, he made it a priority to bring people together. He believed the strength of the initiative would lie in its ability to connect communities, sharing resources and ideas across states. One of his first big projects was organizing a national art showcase that would highlight work from participants in each local program. The showcase became a logistical puzzle, requiring coordination between dozens of cities and countless artists. But Michael's passion for the project kept him focused. He reached out to Rachel for advice on managing the complexities, knowing her nonprofit experience would be invaluable. "Start small," Rachel suggested during one of their late-night calls. "Focus on a few key cities to get the ball rolling. Once you've proven it works, the rest will fall into place." Her insight proved to be exactly what he needed. Michael chose 5 cities to participate in the pilot phase of the showcase, each representing a different region of the country. The selected programs worked tirelessly to create and submit their best pieces, and as the launch date approached, anticipation grew. Michael invited Rachel to the opening night of the showcase, which was held at a prestigious gallery in New York City. "This wouldn't have been possible without you," he told her as they stood together, admiring the vibrant collection of artwork. Rachel smiled. "It's all you, Michael. I'm just here to cheer you on." The opening night of the National Art Showcase was nothing short of spectacular. The gallery was packed with attendees, artists, community leaders, and supporters from across the country. As Michael mingled with the crowd, he felt a deep sense of pride in what they had accomplished. Each piece on display told a story. There were paintings that captured the pain of loss, sculptures that symbolized resilience, and photographs that celebrated the beauty of human connection. The diversity of the work reflected the initiative's mission: to use art as a bridge between people and communities. Michael took the stage halfway through the evening to address the audience. "This showcase isn't just about the art," he said, his voice steady and filled with emotion. "It's about the stories behind it. It's about the people who found hope, strength, and connection through creativity. And it's a testament to what we can achieve when we work together." The room erupted in applause, and Michael felt a wave of gratitude for everyone who had made the night possible. He spotted Rachel in the crowd, her smile bright and encouraging. After the event, they walked through the gallery together, taking in the artwork and reflecting on how far they had come. "This is just the beginning," Michael said, his voice filled with determination. "There's so much more we can do." Rachel nodded, her hands slipping into his. "And we'll do it together." As they left the gallery that night, Michael felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known before. The journey had been long and filled with challenges, but it had led him to a place where his work, and his life, felt truly meaningful. The success of the National Art Showcase rippled far and wide. Media outlets highlighted the initiative, sharing stories of artists who had overcome adversity through creativity. Donations poured in, and Michael received invitations to collaborate with even larger organizations. The momentum was undeniable, but it also brought new challenges. One evening, as Michael sat reviewing proposals in his New York apartment, Rachel called. "Have you seen the articles? They're calling your initiative revolutionary," she said, her voice brimming with pride. Michael chuckled. "It's overwhelming, honestly. It feels like there's so much more to do now." "You've built something incredible," Rachel reassured him. "But don't forget to take a moment to appreciate how far you've come." Her words struck a chord. Michael closed his laptop and stepped outside onto his balcony, taking in the city lights. He thought back to where he had started, a betrayed husband, broken and lost. Now he was leading a movement that gave others hope. It was a humbling realization. When Michael visited Boston a week later, he and Rachel walked along the Charles River, reflecting on the journey. "Every time I think we've hit a peak, something bigger happens," he said. "It's like the work has a life of its own now." Rachel nodded. "That's because it's not just your story anymore, Michael. It's everyone's." Inspired by Michael's growing success, Rachel began to reflect on her own path. She loved her work with the nonprofit, but the challenges of balancing her role and supporting Michael's initiative left her wondering if it was time for a change. One evening, she shared her thoughts with Michael over dinner. "I've been thinking about starting something of my own," she admitted. "A nonprofit that focuses on emotional resilience through storytelling." Michael's eyes lit up. "That's an amazing idea, Rachel. You've always been incredible at helping people find strength in their stories." Rachel smiled, encouraged by his support. "It feels daunting, though. Leaving what's familiar to start something new, it's a big leap." Michael reached for her hand. "You've already proven you can handle challenges, Rachel. If anyone can do this, it's you." Her confidence grew as they brainstormed ideas together. Rachel decided to take the leap, resigning from her current role and dedicating herself to building her vision. The decision was bittersweet, but she felt a renewed sense of purpose. Rachel's new nonprofit and Michael's expanding initiative created an even deeper connection between them. They became each other's strongest allies, offering advice, encouragement, and unwavering support as they navigated their respective paths. One evening, Rachel invited Michael to the launch event for her nonprofit, Stories of Strength. Held in a small but charming venue, the event featured individuals sharing their personal journeys through live storytelling. The intimate atmosphere was filled with emotion, laughter, and tears. Michael watched Rachel as she took the stage to address the audience. "We all have stories that shape us," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Sometimes they break us, but more often they remind us of how strong we can be. This organization is about celebrating that strength." As the audience applauded, Michael felt a swell of pride. Later, as they stood together near the exit, he turned to her. "You've created something incredible, Rachel. I'm in awe of you." Rachel smiled, her eyes meeting his. "We've both found our purpose, Michael. And I couldn't have done this without you." Their shared journey had brought them to a place where their passions aligned, not just with each other but with the people they were helping. Together, they were proving that even the deepest wounds could lead to the brightest futures. Months after the launch of Stories of Strength, Rachel's nonprofit had already made a profound impact. Workshops were filled to capacity, and testimonials poured in from people who found healing through sharing their stories. Michael's national initiative continued to thrive, its influence reaching communities he had once only dreamed of touching. Their individual successes only strengthened their bond, as they found themselves more in sync than ever. One evening, Michael and Rachel organized a joint event, a celebration of art and storytelling. Held in Boston, the event featured murals painted by Michael's program participants and live storytelling sessions hosted by Rachel's nonprofit. The venue was alive with creativity, emotion, and hope. As the night drew to a close, Michael and Rachel took the stage together. Michael spoke first, his voice steady and filled with gratitude. "Tonight is about more than just art or stories. It's about the resilience of the human spirit. Every piece of art and every story shared here represents someone who chose to rise above their pain." Rachel stepped forward, her smile radiant. "We started this journey from places of brokenness. But together, we've shown that even the deepest wounds can lead to the most beautiful transformations. And we hope tonight inspires all of you to believe in the power of your own stories and creativity." The audience erupted into applause, the energy in the room palpable. After the event, Michael and Rachel sat quietly in the gallery, the space now empty. "This feels like the beginning of something even bigger," Michael said, his tone reflective. Rachel nodded, resting her head on his shoulder. "It's amazing to think about how far we've come. And yet, it feels like there's still so much more to do." They talked late into the night, dreaming of the future. Michael envisioned expanding his initiative globally, while Rachel considered taking Stories of Strength into schools to help young people discover the power of storytelling. Their dreams felt limitless, grounded by the support they gave each other. As they walked out of the gallery together, hand in hand, they felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Their journeys of pain and betrayal had transformed into paths of purpose and love, proving that even the hardest experiences could lead to something extraordinary. Months later, Michael and Rachel stood on a stage once again, this time at an international conference on creativity and healing. Their work had inspired thousands, and their partnership was now recognized as a model for combining art and storytelling to create change. As Michael addressed the crowd, his voice carried a sense of finality. "This journey started with pain, betrayal, and uncertainty. But it taught us something powerful, that even in our darkest moments, there's an opportunity to rebuild, to find purpose, and to create something meaningful." Rachel took the microphone next, her gaze warm and steady. "We want to leave you with this thought. Every one of us has a story worth sharing, a creative spark waiting to ignite. What will you do with yours?" The audience rose to their feet in applause, but Michael wasn't finished. "And now we want to hear from you," he said, his tone inviting. "What inspires you to create? How have your own stories shaped your journey? Share your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to know." Rachel added, her voice filled with sincerity, "And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation going. Together, we can inspire even more people to believe in the power of art, stories, and resilience." As they left the stage, Michael and Rachel felt a profound sense of peace. The journey that had begun with heartache had led to healing, love, and a shared purpose that would continue to grow. Their story was complete, but its impact would live on in the lives they had touched.